And we are live. First time. You can hear me. It's great. If you can't hear me, fix your audio because I'm here. I'm kidding. Um, just doing some setup, making sure everything is okay. Have a guest coming in just now. It's gonna be my first podcast. Usually I'm over at Twitch on my gaming channel, but today I'm gonna be trying something a little bit new using a different program of StreamYards, and we're gonna see how this goes down. So I'm excited to start this one. The one thing I don't know is if StreamYard allows you to separate your audio tracks. I thought I found a video for it, but no, I'm just like, I hope it does. If it doesn't, my editor is going to be extremely annoyed at me. I just have to figure out how that works from there. It says I'm uploading. Please speak. You can see the design up in the corner. You can see my name. You're going to see the name of guests as they come in. Oh, yeah. Pretty excited to have this going. Got 8 minutes to go. We should be live. Let me just double check. We should be live on LinkedIn as well as my YouTube page. So let me just double check. You never know. When you're going live and you're doing these things, you never know how things end up getting. Oh, yeah, I see it. I see myself. We're over here. We're there. If anybody is in the chat, just say hello so I know we have some pulses in here. I'm not just talking to the internet, talking to a blank screen. I've been talking to too many blank screens for work. So it'd be great to know that there's human beings still out here trying to listen, not just AI. And if your chatbot's listening, don't clip me. Don't take me out of context. Awesome. So let me just check over here, switching. And if you are tuning in, if you're tuning in through LinkedIn, if you're tuning in through YouTube, just let me know which one, and I could adjust accordingly. Got the bell notification. Great tips, thanks. Nice. My channel live. Oh, okay, I see both of them are live and ready to go. This is pretty good. The only thing that's a question mark is, will my editor dislike me or will they not? We'll have to find out next episode of Dragon Ball Z, man. We'll find out the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. Oh, comments. I see. Shreya, hey, how's it going through LinkedIn? Welcome. Glad to see you joining in on a Thursday night. You could be anywhere else in the world, but I'm glad you're here with me. How's the evening going? Ready for a good talk with one of our colleagues? I know I got my podcast a little bit late today because, or at least the announcement, because I'm like, oh yeah, that's what you should do if it's live. When it's usually when I'm recording on myself, I just like, nah, you don't have to know until I release the episode. But it's always good to give that little heads up and reminder for people beforehand of what's going on. All right. Our guest is ready and waiting in the lobby. I'm gonna let him in. I can see you. Hopefully, could you give me a nod or a thumbs up if you can hear me? Awesome. I get both. How lucky am I? Awesome. I'm just gonna add you to the stream. Boom. Welcome, Mo.
What's up? What's up? Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you fine. Could you hear me well?
I could. How's it
Okay.
going?
It's going well. I was worried because when I was looking at my mic, I always have audio problems. I was looking at it, it was like barely moving up or down, and I'm like, can we not have this today? I don't need this in my life.
Oh, for sure.
I'm glad it's working though. Awesome. So, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the first live podcast, season 2. I was going to start doing more video. I did one episode where it was not live, but then I said, why not? What's the problem? Where's the harm in going live and just doing this all in real time? So, I'm so excited to have you here today as a guest on this episode of Breaking the Imposter.
For sure. No, thank you for having me.
Awesome. And for those of you that don't remember, welcome back to another episode of Breaking the Imposter. I again am your host, Jermaine Ward, and we are live for the first time. Before we get into anything, Mo, are there any questions that you want to get out or like prep, or you're ready and good to go?
I'm good to go. My camera, my audio, everything's good to go.
Your audio is good. I think there's just a slight delay. We're not going to hold against you. It's what happens when we're online, but it's still good enough where we can move through it.
Sounds good. Other than that, no further questions. I'm ready to jump into it.
Awesome. Awesome. So I'm just here. I'm introducing Moghid Saad. Is that, am I pronouncing that right?
A little bit. I
A,
won't hold
li-
it against you either.
a little bit.
So it it is a Arabic name. So
Mhm.
it's pronounced Mujahid. But I do go by Mo. Either one works for
Mm.
me.
Mujahid, Mujahid. Every
Yes.
time, like even when I was introduced to you, it was always Mo, and I'm like, I will butcher this when I say it because
It's all good.
I only have the Mo part in my life.
No, you've got it. You've got it. But you've actually
Awesome.
pronounced it pretty well. So when you said Mujahid, like it sounds like an Arabic person speaking. So that was solid.
Only when I get the right cues do I get it right. So thank you for that. But we'll go calling you Mo as I do on a regular basis, and most people know you as.
For sure.
And as a guest, I know that you are a senior UX designer at TD. You're a mentor on Super Peer and ADP lists, but I can't do you justice for your introduction. So, do you want to share anything else with us that's hasn't been already said?
No, I appreciate it. So yes, I am a senior designer at TD. Been there for 2 years. I am a mentor on ADP lists, Super Peer, and I do run a youth basketball organization out in Brampton, Ontario, where I also coach on the side there. So I coach all the way from ages 5 up to 18, boys and girls. So that's pretty solid as well. Um, I think that would be about it.
The man of many talents, always trying to find out how can I teach people and guide them to a better result, either in product or in their career or through just being more active and their basketball.
For sure.
Awesome. And just like help us understand something about your industry. I know I'm in the same industry, but can you just give us an explanation of what your industry is, either through the mentorship side or the UX side or the coaching side? Just give us some idea of some of the industries you're working in.
So in terms of the industry, it is UX design. Um, so currently at TD, where I'm currently employed, it is as a UX designer, and that is the digital product side of it. Um, And in terms of the mentorship, it's the same thing, but it's also along the lines of helping the junior and as well as aspiring designers either continue to grow within their career or try to get their foot into the industry. As we know, UX is pretty broad. There's quite a lot that goes under the UX umbrella, but the focus is on the user experience, and I think that's kind of where I specialize in, kind of understanding what the user is looking for, how to enhance their experience, and at the same time, how could we meet the business goals, right? So it's kind of twofold. You do have to look up for the business as well as try to achieve the best user experience for the user, to drive the business goals going forward and to achieve the business goals.
Awesome. I'll look at that in two parts. So you mentioned user experience, user experience. So how would you actually define user experience for those that might not understand what you mean when we say those words where we're commonly just know exactly what it means?
For sure. Um, I think it's a little tricky, and to kind of just go into it, I could talk a little bit about my background. So the way I fell into UX design or user experience was by accident. But prior to that, I've always noticed whether it was good experience or bad experience on digital products. And when we say good user experience or bad user experience, we want to think about, as you're using an application or you're using a website, how easy is it for you as the user to navigate through the application or the website to achieve your end goal? So if you're looking to purchase something, Is it a simple user experience where you know exactly where to click to achieve your goal, or are you kind of getting lost in like the digital space of the website or the application? And when you face those challenges, I think a lot of people just end up quitting, or just exiting the site or the application. But as UX designers, we know like that's where the drop off happens, and we call it the drop off rate when a lot of users continue to drop off. Um, but in terms of user experience, it's pretty much from when you launch the application or the website, how easy is it for you as the user who's using that product to achieve your goal uh, on the website or application?
Yeah, and that's very important from what you're saying is they came here to do a job. How do we help them get from point A to point B in order to complete that job or satisfy that goal that they're looking for ultimately?
For sure.
Awesome. And you also mentioned that business is important with it. So what are some things that we have to be aware of as a UX designer and communicating with business that somebody might not know already?
That's a really good question. Um, I think it's also a little tricky. So when you say communicating to business, is it in terms of what we want to communicate to them about the user and what the importance of the work that we do, or um, what were you thinking in terms of that question?
Well, more so the idea of when you bring business up and you have to communicate with them and see their importance within your work. How does that fit into user experience? Because your job title has like their user's experience in it, but
Right.
then you mentioned that we can't forget about the business. So how does the business work in that path of UX design?
For sure. So, when we think about again, bringing it back to the apps or the website that you're using, any digital product, is serving a purpose and a goal, right? So whether they are selling you a product, whether they want you to sign up for their platform, whether it's educational, whatever the case may be, whatever it is that the business is selling, they have a goal and they have numbers or a target that they want to achieve. And the users coming in are interested in that product. Um, so as UX designers, we have to think about how do we merge the two? How can we help the business continue to grow by selling those products and to continue excelling in their field, but at the same time, ensure that the customers that are coming into their platform are enjoying their experience and having a good enough user experience where they can come back over and over and be repeat customers, or to be able to recommend that company to their friends or family. Because we've all been there. Like you went to a store, you went to a company, you've had a bad experience, and you say to yourself, you know what, I'm not coming back here, or this is not something that I would recommend to anyone else.
Mhm.
Um, but we have to be understanding of what it is that the business is trying to achieve. At the same time, help them understand that in order for them to get those customers to continue to be repeating customers or to continue growing their business, those users are at the center of what they do, and they have to be enjoying their the service and the experience in order to continue growing and coming back.
Got it. So for my understanding of what you're saying, and I heard you use like goal a lot, so I'm going to stick onto that word.
For sure.
It's you're trying to understand the goals from your business and the user base that the business is trying to target and marry what their goals are so they're both satisfied at the end of the
For
day.
sure. Right. Because when you work for these organizations, yes, you are there to satisfy the user, but at the same time, you have to be able to work with the business partners, and help them understand why what you do is important and how it could help them achieve again their goals, of continuing to grow their business or sell their product or whatever goal it is that they have, that they'd like to achieve.
Perfect, perfect. And speaking along the lines of goals and what they want to achieve, how did UX become one of your goals that you wanted to do? How did you move into this? I know you briefly alluded to it earlier, but I'm like, wait,
Right.
let's get back to that and see what did you mean? Like, well, how did your journey start in getting in this space?
Okay. So I've always dabbled in, I guess, design. Um, and I might be showing my age here, but I'll take you back to the MySpace era, where I would build my profile and I would design it and customize it using HTML, um, as well as design components within the MySpace platform. For those who don't know, this was I guess the platform before Facebook. So it was a while back, but I've always enjoyed like customizing my profile and working on it there. At the same time, I was creating logos and flyers for family and friends. Um, Meanwhile, at that time, I did not know what user experience was. I just knew that I like to design. I knew that I like to make things look good and what would draw the attention of people who would look at the flyers or individuals who would land on my MySpace profile. Um, so that was one part to it. And then going back to UX, I did attend Sheridan College, but again, didn't know what UX design was. So what I was studying was computer systems analyst, which was a lot of the back end. So it was a lot of programming using languages such as HTML, JavaScript, Java, Swift for iOS, and quite a lot more, as well as understanding how to use a database to extract information as well as bring information to the forefront. So I was just going through the motions because I knew at the same time I enjoyed technology, but there was one class in particular that really opened up my eyes a little bit, and that was a visual design class. And it was just one class, one semester, but it really left an impression on me. And this is where the professor was kind of teaching us about the little intricate parts that make up the website in order to get those customers or clients to continue coming back and kind of guiding them along the way to help them achieve the goals that they want on the website. So that was one part that's where it piqued my interest. And in the third year of that program, we had the capstone project, um, and this is where myself and three other colleagues or classmates were working on a project for the duration of the whole third year. Um, and with that project, what was interesting about it was they brought in an external client that had nothing to do with the school, who wanted to build an application that would allow the customers to be able to book gym space at their convenience from their mobile phone. So whether it's a community center, wherever, and they wanted to do that by allowing the client to be able to split the cost with other customers. Um, and what I found was where my strengths lay, and that wasn't communication. I was able to communicate with the clients, the stakeholders. And when I say stakeholder, this is like the professors as well as some of the potential users who would use this application. And the strength of my teammates was, or my classmates was the back end, right? So this is where they really enjoyed thriving and working on the back end. And I really enjoyed the front end of it. So in terms of project management as well as user experience. Um, and I found that I was pretty successful at it, even though it was like by accident. But this is where I started to understand who I was as a person and where my strengths were. And we ended up placing second in the competition
Nice.
across three campuses. So that was pretty solid. So I took that little bit of success and I ran with it. So once I graduated with my computer systems analyst degree, I started to deep dive into UX on my own, to really understand what it is, how do I get better at it, and learn from others within the industry that have been doing it for quite some time.
Nice. So it's just like from the beginning, you're just doing things for your own benefit and learning
For
about
sure.
systems, learning all the different tools. And then eventually, just one class was just made you be like, wait.
No, for sure.
And then it's just like you haven't quite looked back, especially as you've been more on the front end. But do you still do a lot of front end work, or is it just mainly visual design aspect of it, but not the coding part?
So Right now, it is more the visual design, as well as focusing in on the user experience in terms of like creating the wireframes. I'm using a lot of UX jargon. But for the listeners, a wireframe is pretty much a stripped down version of the website. It's one of the earlier stages where it's more in black and white. We're not focusing on the color, and we're just trying to ensure that the buttons are in the right place, the copy is in the right place. So it's kind of the skeleton and the bones of the website before we launch it. But that's where my focus is. I haven't gotten back to any coding. I still know how to code. I just don't apply it. But where it does help me in my current stage is to be able to communicate with some of the partners within my UX world. Because as you know, we do work with quite a few different partners, and some of them are the development team.
Mhm.
So I think having that knowledge and that background did help me in some way. Um, and we're here now, and we're thriving.
Nice. I just like to make a quick acknowledgement to Alex. Just saw you come in, say hi. And Alex used to work with him, really great guy. And before I forget the topic, though, I wanted to say hi and get back.
For sure.
One thing that you told me was one of your strong softer skills was communication. So I think it's very interesting that it sounds like it's easier for you to communicate with your developers because you like clarified what the jargon is for UX, but I imagine you also have that speak and like jargon that you could use with the devs. So it's not a hey, do these designs. It's a oh,
For
what do
sure.
you mean you can't do that? You just have to change the CSS or change the like that's
And it's happened, and some of the developers were surprised in my earlier stage when I've communicated with them.
Mhm.
So I've crossed that bridge for sure.
Nice. And what were some of those other soft skills other than noticing the communication aspect that helped you really start to move in to this career of UX design versus more on the computer system side?
For sure. Um, so I think again, taking it back to the computer systems analyst program, I've noticed a lot of my peers, the way they would approach their work was more from a technical mind frame. Um, And what I mean by that is, does the code work or does it not work? And it's just more like black and white for them. Versus myself, I was thinking more of the users, right? So having that empathy to understand the users and what some of the challenges would be that they would face. Um, Whether the code works or not, does the user understand what is happening on the screen? Does it make sense to them? And is it easy for them? So I think having a sense of empathy really allowed me to continue to grow as a designer and to be successful in what I do, and allowed me to grow in my career. So it's definitely communication, and when we say communication, it's more like under listening and understanding, and not so much just like verbal communication back and forth. But also the listening part of it is pretty important, right? So we want to be able to hear what it is that's being relayed to us, rather than just the words. Understand what the user is going through, what they're feeling, and how could we alleviate some of those challenges that they're feeling.
So it's like not just doing it and understanding how it should work and what you're doing, but why does it even matter the way that we construct things and look at that and through listening and talking with other people, that's how you started to take that into your current role and advance you from just worrying about the technical aspects.
Right.
Nice. So now that you're in UX, now that you're mentoring and you're doing coaching, like why do you even want to do this? Like what makes you get up in the morning to say, you know what, this is another day we're doing it. Let's get it.
In terms of mentoring or doing the actual work,
Doing
the
the
UX work.
work, doing the mentoring, coaching, all of these different things that you're
Right.
interested in. Like what motivates you in some of these? Are they the same? Are there different motivations for some of them?
I think it is different. When it comes to coaching, the reason I do it, whether it's in basketball or whether it's in UX design, is I saw what coaching did for myself and how it really transformed who I was as a person, to really have someone that walked the path that I wanted to walk. and be able to make it a smoother transition for myself, and really just open up my mind and show me like how easy it could be or how accessible things could be, um, if I have someone to kind of just help guide me along that path. So ever since, I've just continued to give back. I've seen what my coaching has done for some of the youth that I have coached in basketball. I've seen what it has done in terms of mentoring some UX designers. When they have that aha moment and the light bulb just goes off in their head as you're explaining something to them, um, that's what I really do it for, to help them again just achieve their destination and in getting there. In terms of UX design, I think there's a lot that goes into it. And that it is a tricky one, but I really enjoy making a difference, especially when it comes to fintech. I've learned quite a lot about finances in the past 2 years than I have the rest of my previous life before I got into fintech. And part of the challenge there was when my parents immigrated to Canada, the way they handled finances was a little bit different, right? So I think a lot of people might have experienced this before in their life where, parents would hide money under the mattress or in a shoebox and just keep it safe somewhere. Um, and to tie that back into my work is I want to be able to help those people who are probably new to the country, like my parents, um, understand finances in a way that would make sense to them, understand why it would benefit them, and kind of make it an easier transition for them. So I've seen some of the challenges that my parents have faced when it came to those finances, and now I'm in a position where I can give back, solve problems, and understand in the back of my mind there are thousands of people who would be using these products who I am making a difference for in their lives. So that's one part. And then another is I enjoy just problem solving, communicating with different individuals and different stakeholders, whether it's business, legal, dev, product owners, who all have a certain agenda or a goal that they want to achieve and meet at the end of the day. And it's kind of just have leading that conversation and trying to merge all of that together so we can all achieve the one goal, and ensuring that the customer is happy at the end of the day, and they continue coming back and they're enjoying their experience.
And you said that there is two different motivations, but as I hear you talking more, I'm like, wait, there's like this through line of,
Yeah,
oh, how do I go and understand people, talk to them, really start to see where they need help on, what some of their goals are, and then help them have those aha. We did it.
right,
We made more money, or we helped our customers, or I was able to apply some of the skills I learned in basketball towards my schoolwork, or some of the talents or principles that you've given me in UX as my mentor or coach. I'm now taking that to my job search. So I'm thinking like, there's a lot of that aspects when it comes to what you said, where I'm hearing of you like that problem solving aspect that involves
right.
people within your process.
No, for sure. And sometimes they don't. The people that you mentor don't necessarily see the success in real time. And I'll tie that back into my basketball coaching. Uh, I would coach some of these kids from like the seventh grade up to the 12th grade. And there will always be the back and forth, the challenges of trying to get to them and really help them understand what it is that I'm trying to tell them, whether it is whether it applies to their personal life or their basketball career. And at times, players when they're young, or the athletes when they're young, they do think that they know better and they do try to challenge you, and you have those moments where you are butting heads. um, but it took one player who was in their third year in college coming back to me and saying, you know what, thank you for really pushing me and telling me these things. And they were quoting some of the sentences or some of the quotes that I would give them. um, and I was just like, I don't even remember saying that, but the fact that it really stuck with you and helped you along your career, that was amazing. And that was just like the moment that made it all worthwhile for me.
Mhm.
Um, but no, it was amazing, right? Like I don't even remember having that conversation, but as they said it, I was like, you know what, that sounds like something I would say, and I'm glad it did help you.
And I can hear the appreciation in your voice. I'm just like thinking when everybody else has like a picture of Jordan or Kobe or somebody in their room, they have a picture of Coach Mo on their wall with the quote that they didn't customize themselves. Just like, yeah, yeah,
I'll take
I
it.
do it. I got to do this.
No, for sure, I'll take it.
Awesome. Awesome. And going through all of that, these different things that you're looking at in your life, was there ever a moment where moving from computer systems analysts to being a coach that you felt like an imposter, like you had imposter syndrome, or you're like, am I allowed to do this? Should I be able to do this? Does it make sense that I'm the one that has the opportunity to do this?
Yeah. Um, I think earlier in my coaching career, I definitely did face it. I still remember the first season I coached, and it hurts to say it, but as a team, we did not win a single game that season, and I continued to question myself. I could continue to question my philosophy. Should I be coaching kids? Should I be a basketball coach? Do I even understand the game of basketball? Um, but the one thing that kept pushing me was I need to be better. I need to continue getting better. And I know I don't have all the answers, so I'm going to continue learning to ensure that what I'm giving to these kids or athletes is the best version of myself. Because it wouldn't be fair for me to kind of lead them and not know what it is that I'm doing. Now I'm in a position, I've been coaching, I think, what, 11, 12 years now. So I do have that comfort level where I could walk into a game and understand this is not the wins or the losses, is what are the athletes learning today. If we do lose the game, uh, more often than not, it opens up that line of conversation where we can try to look at where it is that we did not meet our goal, where did we struggle, and how could we improve as a coach and as the athlete. And part of that is being humble enough to know at times if I do make a mistake in a game, I'm willing to accept it. And I would accept it in front of my team, just so the players that I coach, just so they understand, okay, if coach can accept his failures, I can as well, and I could learn from it. So that's one part of it. And then just going forward from there, it's always been on the up and up, meaning we've always continued improving our seasons in terms of winning games. It's harder to really identify where you went wrong when you are winning a lot of games. Just because there's that moment of celebration and everyone is excited and happy. But as a coach, I have to sometimes reel myself in, reel the players in, and still learn from those wins as well. So how could we even improve more on our wins and our successes? So that's the basketball side of it. Going back to UX, um, I always bring it back to the UX umbrella is so broad, and my imposter syndrome is still there, and I still face it. But earlier in my career at TD, I've had two managers really speak about their imposter syndrome as well. And this is before I became a senior designer. And when they mentioned that they face imposter syndrome as well, and there's so much within UX that they're continuing to learn, that's when I had my aha moment as well. Like it just something snapped in my brain. Like okay, like it doesn't go away. It's just how you handle it. And if someone at that level is facing it, then it's only fair for me to embrace it and continue attacking it. Um, so I continue to face imposter syndrome just because there's so much to learn. But what I did was I started reaching out to mentors myself to really identify why am I feeling this way and how could I get rid of it. So initially it was how do I get rid of this feeling? And one of the mentors that I spoke to, really great guy, shout out to Ted. Um, Ted told me when you are feeling like an imposter, it's because you are acknowledging and you understand that there's a gap in your knowledge that you want to close, and to achieve, right? So you understand it, you acknowledge it, and you want to continue getting better, and that's a good thing. It's not a negative thing to have that imposter syndrome if you frame it the right way. So rather than thinking, oh, I can't do this, or I'm not in the right position, or I'm not in the right place, I don't fit here, it's okay, I got here for a reason. How do I get better? Right? How do I continue to improve? How do I continue learning? And those are the people who are generally successful. I've heard from several mentors that it's always worse when you think you know everything, and that's when you really run into trouble. Right? When you think you know it all, no one can tell you that you made a mistake, and you're not accepting your failures. That's when you run into challenges in your life.
Yeah, and that's a lot to unpack. And just going off the last sentiment there, where you can, if you're not acknowledging that you can make those mistakes and that everything is fine and perfect, then trying to understand how do I move within that gap can never happen. Because no matter
Yeah.
if you're talking about, oh yeah, I'm good, I know what I'm talking about, I've done this before, you're still having that feeling of there's a chasm that where you want to be and where you are right now are not reflected. So you can say it outside in the world, but internally you're still like dealing with that aspect of it.
No, for sure.
Yeah, and it's like thinking of the processes and how you handled it. Like, how do you make some of those smaller steps in terms of solving that issue of that gap and bringing yourself back into what you could actually action on? Like, for example, how you moved from, oh, I lost game, maybe I'm not good, to wait, okay, so that doesn't mean that I shouldn't be here. That just means where I'm at now and where I want to be. And now I got to move closer to where I want to be. What is kind of that process that you do to bridge that gap?
So, do you want me to tie it to basketball or UX design?
We'll take them. We'll take any of them. It's about you
Any
and
of
how
them?
you process it. Because I'd
Right,
imagine they'd be similar to some
for
degree.
sure. Um, so initially, so I'll start off with basketball because I've been doing it a lot longer, and I think I'm in a better headspace there in terms of really understanding who I am as a person because I've been doing it for over a decade. Initially, that first season when we were losing games, it was a lot more difficult for me to really look at myself. And like within the first 5 games, I thought it was the talent that I did not have, and that's why we were losing games. And it wasn't so much that how I was coaching, um, but I started to internalize the the losses and to really understand them, how it makes me feel during that time, and how am I reacting after a loss. Um, and I just started to research how do coaches deal with losses? How do I continue to inspire myself, continue to inspire the athletes? And part of it was, so initially I would have conversations with the team in the locker room right after a loss when things were fresh in my head. And during that time, I would be speaking out of emotion. So I might not articulate the things the right way. But as I continue to do my research, one thing I learned was take some time away from whatever challenge it is that you're facing. Internalize that feeling, understand why you're feeling that way, um, and communicate with your athletes or your stakeholders or whoever after a 24-hour period where you're able to kind of just calm down, think about what it is that you were going through, um, and again really process what was going on and process your feelings. And it's okay to feel like you've let that someone down, whether it's the athletes or somebody else. But start asking yourself, why do you feel that way, and why do you think you made them feel that way? Then have an open and honest conversation. And I think that goes back to, again, me speaking about being a humble coach. I started going into these locker rooms with, well, player one, you did this, player two, you did this, and this is why we lost. And started asking questions, right? Why do you guys think we struggled? Why do you think we lost this game? Was there anything that I did during the course of the game as I was coaching that you didn't agree with? And why didn't you agree with? Right. So I gave my players the freedom to be able to communicate have that sense of leadership and kind of empower them at the same time, so they do feel comfortable coming to me and speaking to me about what they see on the basketball court, because it might be different from what I'm seeing in terms of the perspective. um, and it's just being someone who could listen to that feedback and not take it personal, right? Because it's the coaching is what I do. It's not who I am, right? So if they're telling me this has not worked as during the course of the game, it is something that I can improve on, and it's not who I am as a person. It doesn't reflect on me as a person. So I think it's just, again, stepping away from it and seeing it from a different lens allows you to process it differently, and to be able to see it from a different perspective and understand where your challenges lay and how you could improve on them.
And you just reminded me of a quote that I heard earlier this week, actually, which, paraphrasing it to bits, but the first response is always emotional. And
Right,
then every response after that has a chance to be logical, right? So, like what you're saying really aligns with that, where you have to allow yourself, if you're in that situation, it's going to happen, whether it's
right,
positive, whether it's negative, from winning a game, from losing a game. It's always going to be emotional, but you have to bring yourself back to that phase or that place where you could actually solve the problem, where you could actually still go and be more objective about where could we improve, what could we do moving forward, instead of just where we're at right now, where we're at the height of emotion.
right. No, I love that quote that you shared. If you can find it, just forward it over to me.
I'll double check. It was like literally yesterday or the day before. I'm paraphrasing it. Maybe I just clip it and ship it and say, this guy's a Jermaine original. We'll see. We have something coming from the chat. So from Martin, says imposter syndrome to me has more to do with the God-given gift when we were little, the ability to observe and become. Imposter syndrome is a moment between believing you can and knowing you can. It's a magical moment. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, that's solid. I really like it. Can you read it for me one more time?
Yeah.
It's longer than I expected, but there's a lot of gems in there.
Yeah. So imposter syndrome to me has more to do with a God-given gift when we were little, the ability to observe and become. Imposter syndrome is the moment between believing you can and knowing you can. It's a magical moment.
Yeah, the part that really speaks to me is that last part. Imposter syndrome is the moment between believing you can and knowing you can. And I think there is some truth to that, right? So I'll tie this one into UX. And during my process of trying to accumulate as much knowledge as I can with UX, and the challenge there was a lot of what I was learning was more in theory, and not necessarily applying it. And this is where I believed I was a designer, right? So I know all of the steps that I have to follow. I know the necessary processes I have to follow. Um, but you get to that stage where, again, it clicks and you know what it is that you're doing without necessarily having to follow that process step by step, that you do learn in theory. And you do learn more as you continue to apply it, and you start to build your own process. And that belief and comfort level within yourself to know what you're doing is correct, and you are achieving the necessary goals for the users as well as other partners involved. It just continues to enhance your your belief in yourself as whatever career it is. But for myself, again, it is UX. The more I continue to do things, the more I continue to fail as I try out some of the things that I've learned and just learn from my failures. I continue just growing and becoming a better designer. So I think that's just my personal story, tying it back into that quote. But I like it.
Yeah, and it has me thinking a little bit different of imposter syndrome, where I'm looking at it from the perspective of, yeah, you could still be an imposter syndrome, but then some things that you mentioned earlier, and also now that quote, is like, do you look at it as a positive way that lets you work on those small things, work on those failures, because you're still feeling the same imposter syndrome, but that's like a call to action to put the theories and what you know into practice? Or do you keep that in the thought phase or the theory phase, and then you keep yourself down from doing action? Like, which path do you want to take? Because it's the same imposter syndrome that you're dealing
Right.
with. It itself is not bad, but you can take A or B path.
No, for sure.
Nice. And just kind of right now, where you are in your career and you're starting to move a little bit forward, like, when was the last time you started a new venture and you had those feelings of like, maybe I shouldn't go because I'm not quite there yet? So outside of UX, outside of coaching, what was like the most recent time that you're like, maybe I shouldn't go in that direction because I have that gap right now?
So I think I think this one's challenging because right now, currently, my world does revolve around coaching, as well as UX. But for coaching, it's more the business side of it. And this is where I have to continue learning about the business side of actually running a business and not looking at it as a basketball program, but how do I continue to build this as a business to create the optimal experience that I want for my coaches as well as my athletes, because I do understand there's more that happens in the background, and there's quite a lot of things that I don't know from the business side of it, and right now I'm in a position where starting to understand I don't have to know everything, and I would go a lot further and be more successful if I bring in individuals who are successful or well versed in that area. I don't necessarily have to have the business mind or business savvy. I could just bring a business partner in to help me run that side of things. Um, and I could tie that back into UX as well in terms, not necessarily my story, but I did reach out to another mentor on ADP list to talk to them about being a product designer, right? When we go into the UX world, you're told as a product designer, you are working from end to end state, meaning you're doing the research, you're building the experience, creating it, and then you create the visuals, the prototypes, etc., and then you help launch it, which was different from my experience at TD, where I'm focused mainly on UX design. So I went to that mentor and I told him, like, I feel like there's a gap in the research side of things for myself, as well as the visual design, because I am more focused on the UX design. And they mentioned to me, it's good to have that knowledge. You don't need to be great at all of those things, but the way that their business or their company is successful is they have a designated researcher, they have a designated visual designer, where each party understands and specializes in one area, and they're all able to collaborate as one and build the optimal design or product for the company, whether it's physical or digital. Um, so again, I'm not venturing into anything new right now per se, but I am starting to understand I don't have to know everything, and I could bring in people that I could work with and collaborate with that know the areas in which I'm lacking, and then I can provide my expertise in the areas that I'm successful at and know that they might be lacking in.
Hmm. I think like you tied it up well, where I'm like, oh, I don't need a follow-up question. That was just done so well. And it makes a lot of sense for me too, where it's hard to be like giving up that power and be like, but if I want to be the best, what about
Right,
all these other things that I have in my background that I'm saying, yeah, it's expected that I should be adding this. It's expected I should be doing that, versus doubling down on your skills, balancing yourself as a T shape so you can still have a conversation about it, but you don't have to be the one at the end of the day executing everything.
right. I mean, I still face that challenge though. Like, I'm always watching tutorials or reading articles or purchasing books on UX design, whether it's the strategy side of it, whether it's the research side. Um, Even if I'm not applying it, I think I do want to continue learning more, because I do think it's going to benefit myself. But on the same token, the better I am as a designer or as a coach, uh, the better the quality or service that I can provide to the customers or the athletes, right? So I'm growing within my career to help benefit those that I'm servicing.
Excellently put. I don't have anything else for there. So, moving on from that, I think that's a great segue onto how you could start adding more benefits to those from the knowledge that you've had thus far in our rapid fire segment. Ready?
For sure.
Awesome. So, the first question is, what is one attribute that has contributed to your overall success or growth?
I would say my drive to continue improving, right? Do you want these rapid fire answers, or do you want me to dive into it a little bit?
If you feel compelled, please
um,
elaborate.
let's just jump into the next question. But it is my drive. It's definitely my drive to just continue improving, and that has helped me continue to be successful and continue to grow.
Awesome. You have the floor if you want to say a few more words to it. I'm not going to rush you through.
um, no, I appreciate it. No, I think it just again it just ties back into again the imposter syndrome of feeling like you don't know enough, or that you don't have a place at the table. Um, and again, you want to continue to grow. You want to continue to sit at those tables and feel like you do know what you're talking about and that you deserve to be there. So I think that kind of just ties into it as well.
Yeah, as Martin had said in the chat, every day I have no idea what I'm doing. ChatGPT.
I've had those days. Uh,
But the drive keeps you going forward and
a hundred
figuring it
percent.
out little by little. Awesome. Next question is, who has been a great inspiration for you?
Ah, that's a good one. In my personal life, definitely my parents. In my work life, it's been the people that I work with. I've been blessed to work with a lot of amazing individuals who come from different spaces, and I'm able to learn quite a bit from them. To at the same time stay grounded, and they help me understand that I do deserve a place at the table, and that I should be advocating for myself, speaking for myself, and to believe in myself. And then in basketball, it was Kobe. So he's my favorite player. Um, but it wasn't so much more his like skill set, but it was his drive, right? So
Hmm.
when I was younger, um, again showing my age, at that time Kobe wasn't considered to be the best player in the league. But he had that willpower to say, you know what, like I'm gonna show you guys, like I'm gonna continue to work. I'm not the most athletic. I don't have the best handle, the best jump shot. But I do have that drive to continue improving, just to prove everybody wrong, and that I do belong at that NBA stage with the great ones. Um, so that would be my three.
Awesome. And who has been your biggest cheerleader for your success?
Again, personal, it's been my family. And then professional, I would say myself. Sometimes you do have to be your biggest cheerleader. Continue to remind yourself that what you're doing is worth it. That you do belong there. And again, I just had to really learn to advocate for myself, working in such a large organization, to remember my successes, to bring those up, to continue raising them, or to acknowledge my failures and uplift myself and continue pushing myself forward. But at the same time, I have reached out to mentors who do continue cheering me on in my career.
Awesome. And how do you celebrate your wins?
How do I celebrate my wins? It's difficult. Um, that's a really good one. I think at this point, like I acknowledge them. In our line of work, sometimes it is challenging to take that time away to really hone in on your wins and really celebrate them, just because you are kind of focused on the next part of your work. I've gotten to that stage where I am starting to slow down a little bit, to acknowledge my wins, to acknowledge some of the great feedback that I am receiving, some of the awards. So it might be cringy, but I have created a folder on my desktop to put all of my awards in there. I titled the folder "Look Here on Your Bad Days,"
Mm.
just to continue uplifting myself and going back in there to remind myself that I am a winner. I have been successful, even if I failed at something during that moment. I've shown in my past that I can win, and I am a winner. Um, in terms of celebrating it, I don't watch a Netflix show, buy myself some chocolate. It's the little things that make me happy.
Yeah, and even your folder on your desktop. So anytime you need to pick me up or you need to remind and just to be like, yeah, I did good, always could go back to it.
For sure.
And then somebody came in and said, love need to be your own cheerleader. We often forget we don't even realize that. Thanks for the reminder. So people are hearing what you're saying and they're appreciating it. They know. Get in your own corner because you can't expect other people to be there if you're not in there.
100%. I'm glad what I'm saying is resonating with people. So thank you guys as well.
And this is my favorite question after the celebrating your wins, because I think that's like a
Mhm.
got you because a lot of people don't consider it. This is my favorite one. So, what's one lie you had to stop telling yourself?
I really had to put some thought into this. It's it's the lie is that you don't belong, right? I often, like, there's a voice in my head that's telling me sometimes, like, you don't belong there. You're not as smart as some of these people that you're sitting at the table with, etc. And that's one thing that I've had to kind of just quiet down. Just tell that voice in my head, just be quiet. Like, I do belong here. Um, and to kind of expand on that a little bit is, I have experiences in my life. I have some knowledge that other people may not have, and they they are very valuable, and that I do bring something to the table. So I definitely belong and have a seat at that table.
Mhm. I hear that. And what's one hobby you do outside of work that keeps you grounded?
Netflix, is that a hobby? um, Okay, so if it's not Netflix, it's definitely reading. Like, I've tried to get back into reading. I was a bookworm when I was younger. Kind of just deviated away from that a little bit, but I am trying to get back into it. And then basketball. Not as athletic as I used to be, but it is kind of that safe home, that safe haven for me to walk into the gym, and be able to continue being competitive. And it's just a different feeling just shooting the basketball, watching it go through the hoop. Uh, you're not able to think about anything outside of the gym. So that is something that I definitely do to kind of just stay grounded, and stay level headed.
Mhm. And what's the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice. I would tie it back to my mentor, Ted, what he said about the imposter syndrome. And that is, again, it's you're acknowledging that there's a gap and that you want to close that gap. Before that conversation with him, I just kept thinking of myself as a failure. Again, I don't belong here, etc. Ever since I heard that feedback, it's just been upwards from there. Anytime I feel like that imposter syndrome is creeping in, I listen to his words that are ingrained in my head, uh, compose myself, and just try to learn, and continue thriving and improving.
Got it. So just like how your student has a pic poster of you, you could have a poster of Ted with his quote on
I need to.
it. And if you had 60 seconds with yourself when you came fresh out of high school, what
uh
advice would you give him?
Other than buying Bitcoin early, uh, missed that train. But advice: move at your own pace. Um, don't move on anyone else's timeline. Don't try to please everyone because you're not going to. And have your own expectations for what your success is, what your success looks like, and not what success looks like for, let's say, your parents, your family members, or your friends. Um, and just move at your own pace. So that was something that I used to really struggle with. Um, and that's the piece of advice that I would give to myself. Just acknowledge it, move at your own pace. You'll get there.
Mhm. And said you're a bookworm, so
Mhm.
I'm gonna ask you with all of the ones you've read, what's one that you'd recommend for the listeners here?
Uh, there is one that I'm currently reading. It's called Crucial Conversations, I believe. Um, I'll send it over to you after. But it is about how to handle conversations when you are feeling like without necessarily tying emotions into it to get the optimal results that you want, or the best results from yourself as well as from those that you're having conversations with. But it is called Crucial Conversations.
Cool. And you're giving me an idea. If I ever get affiliate links for Amazon, I could just post whoever, whatever they recommend. We
I
recommend as
got you.
books. We get to split our cut.
Sign me up.
And what's one piece of parting advice that you have for those who are listening today?
Oh, it could be, parting advice. Seek a mentor. Um, I find that a lot of people that I try to mentor feel like it's challenging for them to reach out to other people. And it's okay to have different mentors because you will learn different things from different individuals at different stages in their life. Um, and if it's something you don't agree with or something that you want to learn a little bit more about, um, ask why. So ask questions, right? Like, why do you think it works like this, or why is your thought process the way it is? Or if you disagree with something, just speak up on it. A lot of us, we do remain quiet and not necessarily putting ourselves out there because we are afraid of what others might think. But put yourself out there, seek out the mentorship, and then question them, right? It's only going to make you a better communicator, and help improve you in whatever area it is that you want to grow in.
Mhm. And for those who also want to reach out to you and have a conversation, maybe get mentorship,
Right.
how can the listeners best reach you?
I am very active on LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn is my username. So it's Moghid Saad. That's the spell, but it is Mujahid. Um, and then on Super Peers, I do go by Mo Designs. So I do have availability there for mentorship. Um, and I'm always willing to give back. So the one thing I always said was, the day I do get my foot into the industry, I'm going to make sure that I give back. Um, and just to continue doing so because I know what it's done for me, and I know what I could offer to the listeners out there or designers that want to improve or break into the industry.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Mo. Thank you, everybody who came in and left some comments or just learned and soaked up some of this information. Appreciate you so much. Mo, I'm sure we'll talk in
Appreciate
the
it.
very near future. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
No problem. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome, welcome. And that ends today's episode of Breaking the Imposter. Remember, you could catch us out on Spotify, YouTube, or moving over there. Now it's on LinkedIn. Uh, we're just getting all of that through. And just one message that came through. I see what a great session. Congratulations, Mo Jimbrain. Looking forward to the next session with an S from JS. So appreciate that, JS. Appreciate that, Martin. Also saying great stuff. Grats. And Mo, I won't take any more of your time if you don't need it. You can stay back and have an after hours. But for now, the podcast is over.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much, Jermaine.
Not a problem. Yeah, so that's the segment for the podcast. That's how it goes. I usually like staying on a little bit longer. I'm like keeping it going live if there's any thoughts you have or anything after the podcast, but I usually just like chilling afterwards.
Is this for myself or the listeners?
No, it's for yourself, the listeners. I
Sure.
just kick back.
Sounds good.
If you're good, if everything's done with you, that's like kind of where the episodes ends. I have after hours all the time, and I'm just like, if I'm here, I'm here. If you have any more things
Right.
you want to say, I'm here. If it's not for the podcast, if it can help listeners or go into some things that have activated in your brain.
I could say a little bit. If there are still some listeners out there that do have any questions for myself, I'll definitely take some questions.
Yeah.
Um, Totally up to you.
Yeah, that's good. Had another person that said, "Thank you for the great conversation," showing in as LinkedIn user. But yeah, nothing else on my end. I do appreciate the sentiment that I got that you gave from Ted, and it got me thinking again. Where it's like, should I just make a drawing on my whiteboard and then start doing like a hey, instead of like writing my goals out in a notebook, just like start to visualize it and just like put a line, put a dip, and then put like where the end goal is, and then say like, what's in
Right.
what do I, how do I fill this hole in order to get there? Like minding that gap of like a visual representation of saying like just shovel this one section, just add shovels here in the middle. It might be deeper, but just put a little bit. You're gonna see the bridge slowly connect later on.
No, for sure. You do need those reminders. And I need them myself as well. Always remind myself like it's not a linear process or a linear path. Um, like there are some bumps, and it's just a matter of just acknowledging it and growing from it and learning from it. Even although there are bumps, like the trajectory is still upwards, right? So always need those reminders to kind of just ground yourself and continue striving to improve.
Yeah, that's why I
Um,
love these so much. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
no, 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 no. Go ahead.
No, I'll just say that's why I love these episodes because I'm always thinking about these just small shifts that I'm making. Because as you said, I think everybody goes through these feelings of imposter syndrome, and everybody. I remember one quote that always stuck to with me was Jordy, one of our podcast episodes. He said, "Everybody's pants is on fire." Right, and starting from that framework of everybody's pants is on fire, he's like, you're gonna go look for a mentor, their pants is on fire too, because they have a gap from where they want to be or where they're at now. If you have somebody that's just starting UX, they may feel like they added more gasoline to that fire, but at the end of the day, everybody's pants is always on fire because you're trying to figure out, what am I doing with my life, what are my next steps, what makes the most sense for me to do, how do I get there. The mind just doesn't stop.
No, and that's why I want to commend you for hosting these sessions, especially about imposter syndrome. I do listen to your podcast, and I always continue to learn, right? And it's easier to go through the journey of the imposter syndrome journey when there are others who are paving the way for yourself, who may feel the same way, and again are able to offer their advice. So thank you for putting it out there and allowing us to listen to into it and to continue learning from it as well. It's much appreciated.
Hey, it's nothing without you and other people willing to share their thoughts. Let us know that it's okay, that we're all here in this together, and just got to figure out what strategies work best for your learning style and temperaments.
For sure. Well, I'm going to drop, but once again, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you. Really appreciate the listeners as well. Um, and we'll definitely have a conversation in the near future again.
100%. Thanks so much, Mo.
No
Talk to
problem.
you
Thank
later.
you. Take care. Bye bye.